Welcome to another edition of the Bruins Recap Show. And while it's been a pretty good week for Boston, as they've taken points in all 3 games that were played during the week, and in total, 8 out of the 9 points to begin the year. But before we get to that, let's start with the beginning big breaking news out of Boston. On the 22nd of October, which was this past Tuesday, Boston has officially placed centerman David Krejci on injured reserve for what has been labeled as an upper body injury. Timetable kind of unknown. The injury previously occurred, I believe, in a preseason game, and then just got even more aggravated Monday night against the Anaheim Ducks. So it's not looking very good for David Krejci. He wasn't really available for most of this week. So yeah, kind of a sketchy moment right now. Charlie Coyle has been taking second line duties with Pyra Lindholm on the third line and Sean Corrali, centering that fourth line as well. Further injury news, though, for Boston. Carson Kuhlman, the coolest man on ice, he's out for at least 4 weeks with a fractured tibia, a hairline fracture on that right tibia, which occurred in the game against Toronto on Saturday. He'll be reevaluated in 4 weeks, but more likely than not, that injury is going to take probably longer than 4 weeks to heal. That's just the way fractures go, especially you don't want to mess with fractures in the legs. So big injury issues coming out of Boston. I know Anders Bjork has been kind of recalled on emergency basis, then dropped back down, and then recalled for emergency basis again. He's actually going to be playing tomorrow night against the St. Louis Blues. Again, another emergency call-up, but that's just the way it works in the cap world. So let's jump to the week in review. 3 games were played this past week between the last time I filmed one of these. And they were home against Tampa Bay, on the road in Toronto, and then back home again against Toronto. You were able to take points in all 3 games, 4 out of 6 possible points. One being a shootout loss, an overtime loss, and then a big win at home against the Toronto Maple Leafs. So, what can we take away from these 3 games? Well, the Boston Bruins power play looks pretty damn good. They scored 3 power play goals. In fact, all of their goals against Tampa Bay were on the power play. They scored another one at Toronto, and then another one at home versus Toronto. 5 power play goals in 3 games alone. They are tied with the Edmonton Oilers for the best power play in the league at 35.7%. Second thing we can take away, the resiliency of this team. As they scored against Tampa, they scored the game-tying power play goal with 3 minutes remaining in the third period. And then at Toronto, they scored the game-tying goal with 4 minutes, 26 seconds remaining in the third. Both of those goals scored by David Pastrnak. We will talk about David Pastrnak a little bit later on. And then also, versus Toronto, you scored both the go-ahead and the clinching goals in the third period. That clinching goal scored by Pyra Lindholm later in the period. Let's talk about a couple of milestones here. So for Tuukka Rask, 2 U's, 2 K's, 500 career games, and ironically enough, he played his 500th career game against the team that originally drafted him in the Toronto Maple Leafs. You can't make that up. And I know there is another YouTube channel that talks about a whole lot of Toronto stuff that freaked the hell out about that. We'll get to well, we're not going to get to that. Anyway, more milestones. 300 career points. 300 big balls of pasta for David Pastrnak. He scores those 300 points in 329 games, putting him, I believe, in the top 10 fastest Bruins to score 300 points. Not coming anywhere near not Barry Melrose. I think Barry Peterson. I could be wrong on that one. I think it's Peterson who has the quickest quickest time to 300 goals or 300 points. So, could David Pastrnak have gotten 300 career points a lot faster? Probably. Because we saw massive spikes in his point production since 2017. Coincidentally, what happened in 2017? Claude Julien got fired. So, correlation, not exactly causation, but it's a definite possibility. Anyway, let's go talk about some concerns here. And of course, it is time for what I am hoping is going to be a weekly segment, the Big Z Minute Tracker. So against the Tampa Bay Lightning, Zdeno Chara, 22 minutes, 5 seconds. Against the Toronto Maple Leafs at Toronto, 22 minutes, 44 seconds. And again, at home against Toronto, 22 minutes, 32 seconds. For an average time on ice of the week for Big Z, 22:27. Again, the question is that too much? Don't know. I would say maybe given the strength of your opponents, probably not. Maybe up it to 22 when you're facing Tampa and Toronto. That remains to be seen. Second big concern, and again, this kind of got brought up a lot post Tampa Bay when Marchand, Pastrnak, and Bergeron were the only people who scored the entire game, is the depth scoring, which was a problem for a chunk of last year, and it looks like it may be a problem to begin the year. It got better this week. It definitely got better. But let's take a quick kind of deep dive into this. For the perfection line, that is the Bergeron, Pastrnak, and Marchand line, 4 goals. They've scored 17 goals. The rest of the team, 9. Again, for an assist, the perfection line, 22. The rest of the team, 21. A little better. And which gives you a point total of the perfection line, 39. The rest of the team, 30. A 9-point difference, and that is coming predominantly in the way of goals. Is this really an issue? If you break it down, it's a 9-point difference between the top line and the rest of the team. What's the ratio? Is there a golden ratio? Is my question to you guys. I think this is fine. For now, this is fine. I mean, if we looked at these numbers and it was like the Bergeron line has 50 points where the rest of the team has only 30, that's a bigger issue. But it's a 9-point difference. Your top line should be your best scoring line. And then the rest of the team kind of secondary scoring. It's why it's called secondary scoring. You should be getting most of your points from your primary goal scorers. So a quick look at the week ahead. We got the Stanley Cup rematch, baby, tomorrow night, Saturday night, against the St. Louis Blues. They are currently 5-2-3 on the year. Having a pretty good start. A much better start than last year for the Blues. So you're going to see all of those wonderful players that we saw last year. Vladimir Tarasenko, Ryan O'Reilly, Jordan Binnington will probably be in net. The question is, I know Boston is going with this goalie alternating thing where it's one day it's Rask, the other night it's Yarrow. Against Toronto, it was Rask. So does that mean Yarrow's in? I hope not. Not saying anything bad about Jaro Halak. He's looked great this season. I do want to give this game to Rask. It's going to be the first game of a back-to-back against the Stanley Cup champions. God, that still hurts. So I would like to have both starting goalies play, where it's Rask versus Binnington, with Yarrow going up against the New York Rangers on Sunday night, where the New York Rangers have had a slower start. They're 3-4-1 currently, but they do have a lot of talent on that New York team. Artemi Panarin got signed for big money. They still have, I believe, Matt Zuccarello. Just a lot of talent available on the New York Rangers team. So yeah, have Yarrow play on the road or I don't know. It's a toss-up, really, because both goaltenders are playing really, really good. Do you want to kind of break up that back-to-back-to-back kind of vibe where it's one, then the other, then the other, then the other? Or do you want to have Rask getting the start against Toronto and then another start against St. Louis before giving Yarrow another game? That's a big question. I think Rask at home against St. Louis should be a better matchup, and then Yarrow can come in, play the New York Rangers on the road. That's just my opinion. Again, both goaltenders are looking good, and that's the beauty of having two really good goaltenders, one being the starter, one being the backup, where you can alternate them every night, and you feel confident going into that game knowing, hey, we got a shot no matter who we put in that net to win the game. And then later in the week, Tuesday the 29th, it is the San Jose Sharks, which is possibly the last time we will see the return of Jumbo Joe Thornton, because he is about, I think, 45 nowadays. Maybe, I forget if he's older or younger than Zdeno Chara, but this could be the last run for Joe Thornton. I know it's sad to say, former Bruin, player that I idolized a bit growing up. The San Jose Sharks, though, they started horrible, getting crushed twice to the Vegas Golden Knights. They kind of righted the ship a little bit under the radar, as they're under the radar secretly 4-5-1. So again, this could be another game for Tuukka Rask. So I see it going Rask, Yarrow, Rask. But it could differ. It could be Yarrow, Rask, Yarrow. Again, it's up to Bruce Cassidy, so we'll see how that goes. We're going to take it to the final segment, the 3 stars of the week. And star number 3, because I did not want to give this to Patrice Bergeron, considering I already said that secondary scoring wasn't much of an issue going forward yet. So for the 3rd star of the week, I'm going to say either Brett Ritchie or Jake DeBrusk. Both of those guys chipped in a goal and an assist this week, so take your pick, one of the two. They're on the second line. Secondary scoring, it is a thing that the Boston Bruins can actually do. They did it against Toronto, and hopefully they do it against the Blues, the Rangers, and the Sharks, so I don't have to keep talking about this every week. Star number 2, the top line, back at it again. Brad Marchand, in 3 games, 5 points, 1 goal, 4 assists. And he was setting up a lot of pasta because that's our number 1 star. Could it be anybody else? David Pastrnak is on a tear. 7 points, 4 goals in 3 games. 3 assists in 3 games. Unbelievable statistics. And if you include the Anaheim game, that's 8 goals in 4 games. The guy has been bananas. Off the charts. A whole lot of pasta. Getting back into mid-season form, just putting the puck in the net at all times. So yeah, that's the week in the review for the Boston Bruins. We'll see you next time. We're going to talk about St. Louis Blues. We're going to talk about the Rangers game. We're going to talk about the Sharks. The power play hopefully continues to look good. Zdeno Chara, maybe he rests a little bit more. What about the goaltending, all that fun stuff? Will there be more secondary scoring? Like, comment, share, subscribe. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time on the Bruins Recap Show.